you look at painkillers, they do exactly the same thing to everybody. They numb their physical pain. What they do for somebody who becomes emotionally addicted to them is they numb their emotional pain. And that's what creates the problem. And I experienced this in my own life because opioids were, when I was in my addictive lifestyle, they were something that I tried and developed a really, I call it a healthy fear of them, because I liked what they did for me way too much.
I think it's really easy for people to blame the addiction.
Yeah.
And you go to AA, one of the things that you and I, talk about, and I have a real problem with is like, hi, I'm Chuck, I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And you're typecasting yourself, and that I've never really understood why they have that stigma where they have to stick into that identity politics of like, I'm an alcoholic versus like, I have unmet childhood needs and I used alcohol to cope.
Right.
And that doesn't make me an alcoholic. That makes me a human being who just had unmet childhood needs.
Right.
And my poison was, narcotics or amphetamines or drugs or whatever that was as well. But, the addiction really comes from how I'm feeling in the moment and staying in that warm pool, and then really just like continuing that pathological behavior. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the best examples I can give of that is, there's a huge amount of issues here in Canada on the streets right now with something called fentanyl.
Yeah.
So fentanyl is, and I think it's pretty much right across the world that there's issues with these things, particularly in the Western world. I know I've got relatives who live in the UK, and fentanyl is a huge issue over there. What fentanyl is it's an opioid based painkiller. It's really strong. It's used for people who are in the latter stages of cancer treatment, things like that, when there's a lot of pain going on in the system. So it's a really strong version of, like, an incredibly strong version of morphine, which, if you look at morphine, that's basically heroin. So all of these drugs fall into the same kind of classification, whether they're natural opiate based or man-made opioid based. They're all basically painkillers. And there's a huge thing about these substances being addictive. And I like to make a difference when I start talking about this, because this can get people's backs up really quickly. The substance itself isn't addictive. It's what it does for you, not what it does to you. If you look at painkillers, they do exactly the same thing to everybody. They numb their physical pain. What they do for somebody who becomes emotionally addicted to them is they numb their emotional pain. And that's what creates the problem. And I experienced this in my own life because opioids were, when I was in my addictive lifestyle, they were something that I tried and developed a really, I call it a healthy fear of them, because I liked what they did for me way too much. And I knew that if I kept going back to them, that was going to be a real problem for me. So there was this like, just this healthy thing where it was like, God, no, I'm not touching those because of what they did for me. Now, genetically speaking, my brother, who, we've got the same parents, he's 5 years older than me. A few years ago, he went through a knee operation and was off work for a while. So I was talking to him, lives in the UK. And I said, hey, just out of curiosity, what did they give you for your the pain in your knee? He said, oh, they've given me these things called Percocets, right? Which is basically, it's painkiller. It's an opiate-based painkiller. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's a bit dodgy. How are you dealing with that? And I said, so what do you think of those? And he said, can't stand them. He said, I don't like the way they make me feel. Yep, they numb my pain, but I just can't stand the way that they make me feel. I don't like it, right? Can't wait to get off them. So what happens is, when he comes to the time of needing them, the doctors do what's called titrate it down. So they slowly take him off of the medication until he doesn't need them anymore. And then his system just kind of regulates and goes back to normal, and he carries on. If there was an addiction issue, so for me, when you tried to titrate me off of them, it's not numbing my physical pain anymore because there is none, but now my emotions are all coming to the forefront. And that's what's dragging me back into the use of the substance, right? So that's the difference between a dependence and an addiction, is that it's not what the substance does to you, it's what the substance does for you. Everybody who uses opiate-based painkillers become physically dependent on them, but not everybody becomes emotionally addicted to them. It's a really big piece of the puzzle that's important to understand. And as you said yourself, if it was the substance that was addictive, every single person who takes a drink would become addicted to it, and that's just not the case. It's what it does for you. So I think when you look at a lot of different substances, you can actually, and it's not black and white, it's not exactly the same every single time, but in a lot of circumstances, you can actually start to get a good idea for what might be going on underneath the surface when you start talking about a substance of choice. So alcohol, for example, most people who find alcohol as their substance of choice are probably dealing with some kind of anxiety issue. So, a lot of people who talk about alcohol addiction start off by saying, "Oh, it made me feel normal in social circumstances. It made me feel like I fit in when I was going into social environments. So it removed the anxiety that I was feeling about connecting with people." When we start talking about things like stimulants, so things like cocaine, amphetamines, crystal meth, things like that, generally speaking, a lot of people who deal with that are either struggling with some kind of depressive state, because it originally, I'm not sure if you're aware that cocaine was actually originally designed to be an antidepressant. It was prescribed to people who were dealing with depression. Freud was notorious for prescribing and taking cocaine himself. So, there's most people who struggle with it are probably trying to either push away from this depressive state, or they're probably, I've found quite a lot of people who might who are struggling with some kind of narcissistic entitled aspect to their personality. I know we're going to talk about personality later, but because there's a sense of power that comes from that particular substance. When we start talking about opioids and opiate-based things, a lot of people are dealing with trauma. So either complex post-traumatic stress disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder itself, or developmental trauma seems to be front and center when we're looking at the substances that people are using. So you can actually kind of get a little bit of a feel when you start to ask the question around drug of choice. What's the deal? Which drug, if you gravitate to one particular substance, which one would it be? You can actually start to get a little bit of an understanding of what's going on in a person's system.
Hey guys, first of all, I want to thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed the content. This particular chat was filmed as a part of the podcast series to support my good friend Chuck Basti and all the work he does as a mental health advocate at Chuck's World of Infinite Mojo. If you want to see the full podcast or just see more of what Chuck does on his social media platform, check out his YouTube channel that's linked in the description below. When it comes to what's going on here, I am on a serious mission to make this platform profitable. Why? Because when I do, I am committed to making sure that every single penny of profit that's made from this YouTube channel goes back into serving the community that needs it most. So, as always, please like this video, leave a comment below, and make sure you subscribe to the channel to get all the latest content available right here at The Liberation Place. Come join us for our live online conversations every week. I'll put all the links in the description below, and let's get the word out there about living the life you want to live, not staying stuck in the life you're currently stuck in. Hopefully, see you soon.